Welcome to our special coverage, bringing you the latest stories shaping our world. As 2025 begins, the situation in Gaza remains catastrophic. Intensified Israeli airstrikes have caused devastating civilian casualties, with nearly 90% of Gazans' population displaced. Families endure harsh winter conditions, many without access to essential supplies due to a crippling blockade. The death toll from the conflict has now surpassed 45,000, prompting growing calls for international intervention. Demands for an immediate ceasefire and unhindered humanitarian aid access are mounting as the tragedies in Gaza continue to escalate. Thousands of Israelis took to the streets demanding the release of detainees held by Hamas in Gaza, with protests erupting in Jerusalem, Haifa, and Tel Aviv. The demonstrations were sparked by growing frustration with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government and its handling of the crisis. In Tel Aviv, clashes broke out between protesters and police, resulting in 6 arrests. Protesters accused Netanyahu of undermining efforts for a ceasefire and the release of the detainees, a claim that he denies. Palestinian media reported that fringe from Israeli drones has injured several Palestinians in northwestern Gaza City. Meanwhile, in southern Gaza City, Israeli artillery bombed the outskirts of the Sabra neighborhood, according to the Palestinian sources. Egypt's Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati has spoken with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken about Gaza and Syria. Abdelati called for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, unimpeded humanitarian aid, and an end to Israel's targeting of healthcare infrastructure. Regarding Syria, Abdelati emphasized Egypt's support for a nationally owned, inclusive political transition. Blinken praised Egypt's vital role in regional stability during their discussion. A plane carrying the Israeli delegation participating in ceasefire negotiations for Gaza has returned to Israel from the Qatari capital Doha. The Israeli Broadcasting Authority reported that the delegation, which had been conducting indirect negotiations with Hamas, boarded its flight on Sunday afternoon, returning to Tel Aviv from Doha, where it arrived on Friday. The Biden administration has approved $8 billion arms sale to Israel. According to Axios, the proposed deal, which requires approval from both the House of Representatives and Senate committees, includes munitions for fighter jets and attack helicopters, artillery shells, small diameter bombs, and warheads. In August, the Biden administration approved over $20 billion in new weapons sales to Israel, which included 50 F-15 fighter jets, 33,000 tank cartridges, and 50,000 explosive mortar cartridges. Wafa news agency has reported that the occupation army arrested at least 20 Palestinians, including children and former prisoners in West Bank, over the past 24 hours. It has added that the arrests took place across several occupied West Bank governorates, including Hebron, Bethlehem, Tul Karm, Jericho, Ramallah, and Jerusalem. Palestinian media reported at least 41 deaths, including women and children, from Israeli airstrikes on various Gaza locations since Saturday, with 27 of the casualties in the northern Gaza Strip. Since the war escalated on October 7, 2023, Israeli military operations by air, land, and sea have caused 45,717 Palestinian deaths, mostly women and children, and left 108,856 injured. These figures remain provisional, as thousands of people are still trapped under the rubble, with rescue teams unable to reach them due to the ongoing airstrikes and the extent of the destruction. The UNRWA has warned that its operations could be paralyzed as the Israeli decision to ban its operations is set to take effect by the end of January. UNRWA said in a brief statement, time is running out for the potential ban on the agency, which could prevent it from providing services to millions of Palestinian refugees. The statement added that the United Nations does not plan to replace the agency, and the Knesset must change its decision to ban it. To shed light on the recent situation in Gaza, we're joined by Dr. Munir Nsiba, a professor of international law from occupied Jerusalem, and Mr. Ahmad Muharram, a political researcher and writer from Washington. Welcome to both of you. I will start with Dr. Nsiba. What are the main obstacles, sir, hindering progress in the Gaza negotiations, in your own opinion?
Thank you for having me. The main obstacle is Israel. Israel has been for a very long time negotiating, but not with good faith, negotiating without actually intending to reach an agreement. Israel is on the ground implementing a genocidal campaign that has been and continues to destroy everything in the Gaza Strip. As we can observe, in the north of the Gaza Strip now, there are no more medical facilities that can serve the Palestinian public in the of the population of that area was forced to move to the south. There are no more universities, no more schools, nothing left in the north. Of course, the south also is undergoing a lot of destruction and killing by Israel. So what Israel is doing on the ground is a very wide-scale destruction. It's a genocide, yes. As has been concluded by every human rights organization and as even the International Court of Justice, so that this genocide is plausible. And at the same time, wasting everyone's time with negotiations without good faith.
Mr. Muharram, how does the United States involvement, including President-elect Trump's warning and Brett McGurk's participation, impact the pace of the negotiations?
Well, thank you for the invitation. I think the United States have tried many different ways since the story started by 7th of October. It's more than 15 months now. The Secretary of State, he traveled like 11 times to the area, having a different messages and missions from the Biden's administration. Not exactly in each mission of them, Israeli cabinet and Benjamin Netanyahu were 100% agree of what America is sending for them. Benjamin Netanyahu has tried so many times to choose what's on his benefit and rejected the rest. So that means he put a lot of pressure under the American administration at the time of Biden. Let us say, as a conclusion, for the next 2 weeks before handing over the responsibility between Biden and the upcoming President Trump, I think Israeli in a situation they would like to test exactly what it can be happen during this kind of the transfer. Some kind of ideas say there is a big hope that the friend of Israel, the President Trump, can do more than what Biden have done. But I think that's putting a lot of pressure on the American administration to see how they can be optimistic and how they give a better picture for America since that what happened for the last 15 months put a lot of pressure, a lot of strikes taking place in different American cities and universities. So many of people, American people, they were rejecting exactly the efforts of the support of America to Israel, the sending money and sending weapons. So we are expecting, I think, within the next couple of weeks, a kind of a change can give a better picture that what America can do to have a better upper hand and a good solution to the conflict which is going on right now.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Nsiba, what are the key issues that remain unresolved between the Israelis and the Palestinians in the ongoing negotiations?
I'm not sure about that actually, but it has been reported quite frequently that the issue of the return of all those who have been displaced from the north to the south of the Gaza Strip are an obstacle. Israel has been trying not to allow the return of those displaced persons. The level of control that Israel can have on the occupied Gaza Strip after this genocide is also another question that has been negotiated quite, again and again. And certainly the way that, the relationship that Israel, the level of control, basically. So I think these are the main points that are being negotiated. Israel does not offer any permanent situation after the end of the war. And Israel does not want to end the war. They would like to have a temporary deal that allows for an exchange without necessarily ending this genocide altogether.
Yes.
They keep talking about scenarios for the day after, but at the same time, there are, they make it impossible. They say they don't allow Hamas to rule. They don't allow the Palestinian Authority, which with the headquarters in Ramallah, to rule. As mentioned and described by Netanyahu, said he doesn't want Gaza Strip to be Hamasistan or Fathistan. That's how he calls it. So he doesn't want the Palestinian people to rule the Gaza Strip, regardless of which type of authority. So, okay, what do you want? And this is the question that I'm not sure is clear with the end of these negotiations. So Israel wants to retain the control to prevent the Palestinians from returning to their homes
and continue the war.
And continue the war and to continue settlements. This is what they have been talking about. They would like to colonize the Gaza Strip.
Back to you again, Mr. Maharim. With the upcoming transition to the Trump administration, how might the U.S. support for Israel and its policies towards the Gaza conflict change under his leadership?
Well, I think from the point of Benjamin Netanyahu, he is very optimistic that he can gain more of what he gained since he got a lot from Biden's, but I think the situation is different now. There is different priorities for President Trump when he comes. I think his main focus is to stop the war in Europe between Russia and the Ukraine. But it could be, again, in his agenda, a second priority to go to the Middle East and do something different. I think from that point, Benjamin Netanyahu is waiting to give a kind of support and kind of a gift that he can agree to stop the war under different conditions. But I think there is kind of pressure at that time. It can be taking place by the American administration. I don't think Benjamin Netanyahu can receive exactly what he used to receive from Trump as usual. There is different circumstances. There is a change in the area. So I think I am quite optimistic that something can happen positively to release the situation and to stop the war and to have kind of fruitful discussion from now onwards to give kind of stability to the area.
Dr. Nsiba, what steps are being taken to secure immediate access for humanitarian aid into Gaza and what obstacles remain? Of course, we know that the Israeli authorities are hindering all the humanitarian aid going into Gaza. So what can be done in this regard?
Since the beginning of this genocide, Israel has destroyed the infrastructure that has been used over the past decades to deliver humanitarian aid to Gaza. Most importantly, the ban of the UNRWA is an important step to prevent the United Nations agency that provides humanitarian aid to Palestinian refugees is certainly a very important step in Israel's genocidal plan that will hinder the efforts of allowing humanitarian aid to enter. Then the world started to try to deliver aid through different means. Different organizations started to get involved in bringing in humanitarian aid, and they were also targeted by the Israeli army. The Israeli army still controls the boundaries of Gaza Strip, including the boundary between Gaza Strip and Egypt, and therefore they continue to prevent humanitarian aid from entering freely to the Gaza Strip and from being distributed in an equitable way that would reach to the people who need it the most in the Gaza Strip. This is a very important factor in the genocide. Now you can see people starving, people dying out of also hypothermia. The cold weather is really now an important cause for diseases as well as death. You can see hospitals without the necessary medications or necessary equipment that they need to do the very basic, to perform the very basic treatments. And this is the current reality. Now, we cannot say that there is a good infrastructure for humanitarian aid distribution or access to humanitarian aid in the Gaza Strip. And that's one of the reasons why this genocide has to stop. The war has to stop. The borders have to be open for not only, by the way, food and medicine, but also persons. For example, we need doctors. After Israel has targeted a lot of the doctors, the nurses, the ambulances, either through killing and injuring or through imprisonments. There are hundreds of medical personnel who are currently in Israeli prisons. Gaza Strip needs more of health care professionals who can treat the people in Gaza. But as long as Israel continues to control the border and to control even with inside the Gaza Strip, this will continue to be the situation. As long as Israel continues to target the hospitals and all the facilities that are being used for survival, we will continue to see people dying and diseases and pandemics spreading very quickly among the population of the Gaza Strip.
Mr. Muharrem, what are the main reasons American officials expressed doubt about the possibility of reaching an agreement on Gaza before President-elect Trump's inauguration?
Well, I think the negotiation which took place for the last few days, and I think today as well in Doha, the Qatari capital, there is a hope and some release of information saying that both sides, especially Hamas, are agreeing in different difficult points. It was discussed a couple of times before. I think one of the good issues I can say that Israel has agreed that Hamas leaders, either inside Gaza or around the world, can be getting some kind of secure that they can live freely, go in and out. That's a good side. The other thing, the number and criteria of the hostage, the detained of the Israeli, maybe around 100 with Hamas people. Some of them are military and some of them are civilians, to be exchanged with good numbers of Palestinians under the prisoner in the Israeli, prisoner. There is some kind of hope that American administration is trying hard for time being that to clear off different issues, by the time I think Trump will be in office around 10, 15 days from now, something can be reach tangible in hand, that there is a hope that the slogan of day after is a good slogan, but under that slogan there is no any details of what will be happening in the next day, who will be responsible if Gaza is not going to be, under Hamas or under some other kind of responsibility. So there is a big hope for the next few days and weeks.
Mm-hmm. We'll just have to wait and see. Dr. Nsiba, how has the public pressure on Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu influenced the ongoing detainee negotiations? In your own opinion, the current demonstrations against Netanyahu, would it actually lead to a breakthrough in the detainee negotiations?
I hope so. I mean, the reality that we are able to observe until the current day is that Netanyahu and his government have been ignoring the demonstrations of the Israeli public to get to a situation where an agreement has been signed and where the prisoners and detainees in the Gaza Strip are released. They have continued to demonstrate on a daily basis for several months, but Netanyahu and his government have been ignoring these demonstrations. And it's probably important also to say that within the Israeli public, there are different opinions. There are those who believe that it's very important to negotiate and get a prisoner exchange deal done, and others who believe that it's more important to continue the destruction of the Gaza Strip and with the destruction of the enemies of Israel. So, I believe that Netanyahu is able to, while he supports the second opinion, as evidently the reality is, he continues to be ignoring all the demonstrations and continuing to destroy the Gaza Strip in the way that he has been doing.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Maharim, what are the key obstacles identified by American officials that are preventing progress in the Gaza negotiations? Any specific points that have been pointed out by the American officials?
I think some of them concerning what Hamas has to agree in difficult points that Benjamin Netanyahu is always rejecting, to give a chance for continuous for Hamas people to be around the area. The second is the answer of the question if the war will stop temporary or for good. What will happen to those 2 million of the Palestinians have moved from their homes? And is any chance that under the circumstances of 80 or 90% of the facilities are already demolished? So the answer of the question, if those people will be allowed to return, how they will be returned? So I think the return of the Palestinians to their homes. And secondly is if the negotiation between the detained and the prisoner of Palestinian in the Israeli, those may be kind of a good numbers of issues that the American administration are concerned, and they're trying their hard to convince Benjamin Netanyahu to be more realistic and more flexible.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Nsiba, what is the significance of the $8 billion arms sale to Israel in the context of U.S. military aid and its ongoing support for the Israeli government?
Complicity with genocide. When a country continues to support a state that is conducting genocide with so much evidence about the genocide. It's not like the United States doesn't know what Israel is doing with the weapons. It knows that Israel is using these weapons to destroy the Gaza Strip, to target civilians, to target hospitals, to target schools and universities and cultural centers and museums and everything that is necessary for life in the Gaza Strip. The US knows that, and at the same time, it continues to support Israel financially and militarily. This is complicity with genocide. This is totally prohibited by international law. The US should remember that there are provisional measures that the International Court of Justice has delivered to Israel in order to stop the acts that amount to genocide. And this has, this should influence not only Israel, but also other countries that interact with Israel. The US has a legal obligation to refrain from supporting the genocide, but the US until today chooses not to. I believe that in the future, the US will find that that this was complicity, and maybe the courts will have a say on that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, that was Dr. Munir Nsiba, Professor of International Law, and Mr. Ahmed Maharim, political researcher and writer. Thank you very much both for your valuable insights. And that brings us to the end of our special coverage for this hour. I'm Hana Al-Hamalawi. Thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for more updates here on Q News.